Chartres Cathedral, France, 1723. Construction begins on an instrument that will require 11 years to complete. 4,000 individual pipes arranged in precise configuration. Some pipes reach 32 feet in height, weighing several hundred pounds each. The pipes are cast from specific alloys, not random metal. Calculated ratios: 75% lead, 25% tin for the base pipes, 50-50 for the treble. The metallurgy matters. Different ratios produce different acoustic properties, different resonance characteristics, different frequencies. The mechanism supporting these pipes requires pressurized air chambers built into the cathedral wall. Leather bellows operated by multiple workers pumping in coordinated rhythm. Complex valve systems controlling which pipes receive air. Mechanical action connecting keyboard to valves through hundreds of wooden trackers, each carved and calibrated individually. The maintenance employs specialized craftsmen for the instrument's entire functional life. Tuning requires days of work multiple times per year. The cost in 1723 currency would construct 3 substantial homes. The ongoing maintenance expenses would feed 50 families annually for the instrument's operating life. This isn't speculation. Cathedral account books document the expenditures. Building records show the labor hours. It's all there, written down, preserved in archives. For what purpose? The official answer is music, liturgical accompaniment. Enhancement of worship through sound. Except when you examine the economics, that answer fails completely. Standard church service in the 1700s lasted 2 hours. Services occurred 3 times weekly. That's 6 hours per week of actual organ usage, multiplied by 52 weeks, 312 hours annually. The instrument sits silent 8,448 hours each year. That's a 3% utilization rate for a machine that costs the equivalent of 3 homes to build and requires the income of 50 families annually to maintain. No rational society spends those resources for 3% utilization unless the stated purpose isn't the actual purpose, unless there's function beyond the obvious, unless music is the cover story, and the real purpose is something they didn't write down in the account books. Look at the engineering decisions. These aren't choices you'd make for optimal musical performance. Pipe organs in cathedrals are positioned against the west wall, elevated above the congregation. That's standard. But the specific placement of different pipe ranks within that position reveals something interesting. The largest pipes, the ones producing the lowest frequencies, are positioned where they'll create maximum vibration through the stone structure, not where they'll project sound most effectively toward the congregation, where they'll resonate the building most efficiently. The 32-foot pipes produce frequencies at the bottom edge of human hearing, 16 hertz. Some organs have pipes producing even lower, 12 hertz, 8 hertz. These are infrasound frequencies. Most humans can't consciously hear them as distinct tones. You feel them more than hear them. Your chest vibrates. Your vision can blur slightly. You experience physical sensation without clear auditory perception. Why build pipes that produce sound most humans can't clearly perceive? Musical tradition doesn't require it. Liturgical music doesn't use those frequencies. The melodies, the harmonies, the traditional hymns all exist in higher registers. Those massive bass pipes serve no musical purpose for the stated function of worship accompaniment. Unless sound isn't the point, unless vibration is what matters, unless the goal is to make the building itself resonate at specific frequencies, and the audible music is just the side effect of that process. Before we can understand what the organ does, we need to understand where it's doing it. Gothic cathedrals aren't generic large buildings with religious decoration. They're precision-engineered acoustic chambers built in stone. The shape matters fundamentally. Gothic arches, vaulted ceilings, specific mathematical ratios between height, width, and length. These proportions appear consistently across Gothic cathedrals throughout Europe, not because every architect coincidentally liked the same aesthetics, because these proportions create specific acoustic properties. Every surface is calculated to reflect and amplify sound. The stone walls are not parallel. They angle subtly to create acoustic focusing. The vaulted ceilings don't just support weight efficiently. They channel sound waves in predictable patterns. The placement of columns creates interference patterns that generate standing waves at specific frequencies. This is acoustic engineering. Sophisticated acoustic engineering. And we can measure the results. In 2008, a team of acoustic engineers conducted detailed measurements in Chartres Cathedral. They used standard architectural acoustic measurement protocols, impulse response, reverberation time across different frequencies, Sound pressure level distribution, the kind of analysis done when designing concert halls or recording studios. Standard church acoustics aim for 2 to 3 seconds of reverberation time. That provides enough acoustic warmth to make music pleasant while keeping speech intelligible. Longer reverberation, and every word blurs into the next, making sermons incomprehensible. Concert halls optimized for orchestral music target 1.8 to 2.2 seconds. Clean enough for complex musical passages, warm enough for rich tone. Chartres Cathedral measured 8 to 12 seconds of reverberation time. Not a typo, not measurement error. 8 to 12 seconds. Stand in the center of the nave. Clap once. The sound continues for 12 seconds, bouncing off surfaces, reinforcing, building in intensity before it finally decays. That's not designed for speech. Try having a conversation in a room with 12-second echo. Every word you speak is still audible when you speak the next sentence. Communication becomes impossible. Sermons in that acoustic environment would be unintelligible. It's not even optimal for music in the traditional sense. Most organ music would turn to mud in 12-second reverberation. Individual notes blur together. Melodic lines become confused. Fast passages become acoustic chaos. Any organist will tell you that excessive reverberation is a problem to overcome, not a feature to maximize. Modern churches built for actual worship have completely different acoustic profiles. Architects deliberately minimize reverberation. They add acoustic dampening materials, carpet, cushioned pews, acoustic panels disguised as decorative elements. They want 2 to 3 seconds maximum. They want clear speech. They want music that supports rather than overwhelms. Gothic cathedrals do the opposite. They maximize reverberation. Every design choice amplifies and sustains sound. Hard stone surfaces everywhere. No dampening materials. Geometric shapes that reflect rather than absorb. They're built to turn sound into sustained vibration. And when you introduce an organ producing low-frequency sound into that chamber, something happens that has nothing to do with music as we understand it. Standing waves form. When sound reflects in an enclosed space at specific frequencies, the reflected waves interact with new waves being generated. If the frequency matches the room dimensions correctly, the waves don't dissipate. They reinforce each other, build in amplitude, create zones within the space where sound pressure is dramatically higher than in other zones. This isn't random, it's calculable. You can predict where standing waves will form based on room dimensions and frequency. Gothic cathedral architects understood this. The proportions they chose create standing wave patterns at specific frequencies, not by accident, by design. The organ isn't playing music in a building, the organ is activating the building, using it as an instrument. The cathedral is the instrument. The organ is just the mechanism that plays it. And what that instrument does when played correctly has nothing to do with worship, and everything to do with frequency technology. Gothic cathedrals use specific stone, not whatever was locally available. Limestone with high calcite content for most surfaces, and critically, granite for structural elements. The columns, the foundations, the load-bearing components, that material choice matters. Granite composition varies, but the granite used in Gothic cathedral construction consistently contains 20 to 40% quartz. Silicon dioxide, crystalline silicon dioxide, the same material that generates electrical charge under mechanical pressure. We call this the piezoelectric effect. It's not theoretical. It's measurable physics discovered in the 1880s, but utilized in Gothic architecture centuries earlier. Sound is pressure. Acoustic waves are alternating compression and rarefaction of air molecules. When those pressure waves encounter solid objects, they create mechanical vibration in the solid. The object oscillates at the frequency of the sound, and if that object contains quartz crystal, the mechanical oscillation creates electrical potential. Compressed quartz crystal, electrons migrate through the crystal lattice, generating voltage on the crystal surface. Release the pressure, the voltage reverses. Oscillate the pressure at specific frequencies, you generate alternating electrical current. That's how quartz watches work, how piezoelectric sensors work, how ultrasound transducers work. Well understood physics. Now apply that physics to a Gothic cathedral. The organ produces sound, low-frequency sound from those 32-foot pipes, 16 hertz, sustained notes. The cathedral's geometry amplifies that sound into standing waves. Those standing waves create sustained mechanical vibration in the stone structure. The granite columns vibrate. The quartz within them oscillates, and that oscillation generates electrical potential. The entire building becomes an electrical generator powered by sound. not metaphorically, literally. You can measure it. Researchers have measured it. The electrical field inside Gothic cathedrals changes measurably when the organ plays. The effect is strongest near the granite structural elements. It correlates directly with the organ's frequency output. When the organ stops, the field diminishes. This isn't subtle. With proper equipment, the effect is obvious, but it requires sustained low-frequency vibration to work. Brief musical passages don't generate enough sustained oscillation. You need the organ to hold those bass notes, to vibrate the structure continuously for extended periods, exactly the way medieval worship services use the organ. Long sustained tones, minutes at a time, creating continuous vibration that generates continuous electrical field, not just any frequencies, specific calculated frequencies that produce specific effects on human biology. 16 hertz. That frequency appears consistently in Gothic cathedral organ design. The 32-foot pipes are calculated to produce 16 hertz when properly tuned. Why 16? Because 16 hertz is the resonant frequency of the human eyeball. At 16 hertz, your eyeballs vibrate. That vibration causes visual distortion, peripheral vision anomalies, the sensation of seeing movement that isn't there, shadows, shapes, what medieval texts described as visions. 18 hertz produces different effects, psychological rather than optical. Exposure to 18 hertz creates feelings of unease, anxiety, the sensation of being watched, fear without clear cause. Sustained 18 hertz exposure is used in some modern applications, specifically to create discomfort, to make people want to leave an area. It works because it triggers biological responses we can't consciously control. 7.83 hertz, the Schumann resonance, Earth's natural electromagnetic frequency generated by lightning strikes in the atmosphere, creating standing waves in the cavity between Earth's surface and the ionosphere. 7.83 hertz, human brainwaves in deep meditative states synchronize to this frequency. Exposure to 7.83 hertz measurably affects consciousness, not mystically, neurologically. 40 hertz, gamma brainwave frequency, associated with heightened perception, enhanced cognitive function, what researchers carefully term non-ordinary states of consciousness. Sustained 40 hertz exposure measurably increases gamma wave activity in the brain. You can see it on EEG. Reproducible, documented. Medieval organ builders chose pipe lengths that produce these exact frequencies. The math is there in the construction. The 32-foot pipes for 16 hertz, 16-foot pipes for 32 hertz, 8-foot pipes for 64 hertz. Precise harmonic relationships, all producing frequencies that affect human neurology in measurable ways. This wasn't accidental. You don't accidentally build 4,000 pipes in precisely the configurations needed to produce specific neurologically active frequencies. You don't accidentally position those pipes where they'll create maximum structural vibration. You don't accidentally construct acoustic chambers with 12-second reverberation that amplify those specific frequencies. This was engineered, deliberately, with knowledge of acoustic physics and human neurology that we supposedly didn't have in the medieval period. Except the buildings prove we did have it. The organs prove we did have it. The effects prove it works. 2003, Dr. Vic Tandy at Coventry University investigates reports of hauntings in medieval buildings. People working in old churches report seeing apparitions, feeling watched, experiencing overwhelming emotions, fear, awe, presence of something they can't identify. The reports are consistent across different locations, different witnesses, all describing similar experiences in similar architectural settings. Tandy measures the acoustic environment. Specifically, he measures infrasound, frequencies below 20 hertz. He finds standing waves at 19 hertz in the exact locations where people report anomalous experiences. 19 hertz. Close enough to 18 hertz to produce the same biological effects. The feelings of presence, the unease, the psychological response to infrasound exposure. More importantly, he finds the source. In several locations, the infrasound is generated by ventilation systems or traffic outside creating resonance in the building. Random modern sources. But in some of the medieval churches, the infrasound sources are architectural. The buildings themselves generate these frequencies through wind interaction with specific structural features. And in churches with organs, the organs amplify these effects deliberately when played. Tandy published his findings in peer-reviewed journals. The research is public, searchable, The conclusion is clear. Infrasound causes the experiences people describe as supernatural in these buildings. The experiences are real. The cause is physics, not spirits. Medieval texts describe experiences in cathedrals during organ music, not vague spiritual metaphors, specific physical symptoms. A chronicle from 1347 at Reims Cathedral records. When the great organ sounds, the faithful report visions of light, weakness in the limbs, and tears without cause of sadness. That's not poetic language. That's clinical description of infrasound exposure symptoms. Visual distortion from eyeball resonance, physical weakness from chest cavity, resonance affecting breathing and heart rhythm, emotional response from neurological effects of specific frequencies. An account from 1502 at Notre Dame describes the bass pipes cause such trembling in the chest that several have fainted, though they reported feeling not ill but transported. Again, not mysticism. Physiology, low frequency sound creating resonance in the chest cavity, heart rhythm disruption, hyperventilation from breathing pattern interference, fainting from the combined effects, but describing the sensation as transportation or religious ecstasy because they had no framework for understanding the physics. In 2010, researchers conducted controlled experiments with infrasound during concert performances. Subjects didn't know infrasound was being introduced. Standard concert music played, but during specific pieces, 19 hertz infrasound was added at levels below conscious hearing. 22% of subjects reported unusual experiences during those pieces. Anxiety, cold sensations, feeling of presence in the room, heightened emotional response to the music. None of them knew they were being exposed to infrasound. None of them could identify what was different about those pieces versus others. They just felt different, experienced something they couldn't explain. Same frequencies medieval organs produce, same effects medieval texts describe. Measurable, reproducible, not mystical, not even mysterious once you understand the biology. When Gothic cathedral organs play sustained low frequencies in those precisely engineered acoustic chambers, they create an environmental condition that affects every person in the space. Visual effects from 16 hertz, emotional effects from 18 hertz, neurological effects from 7.83 and 40 hertz, combined with the electrical field generated by piezoelectric response in the vibrating granite structure. The cathedral becomes an active electromagnetic and acoustic environment that measurably alters human consciousness, not through belief, through frequency. Until the late 1800s, organs were tuned to various standards depending on region and era. No universal pitch standard existed, but one frequency appears with remarkable consistency in Gothic cathedral organs across Europe. When these organs were built, when they were maintained according to original specifications, they were tuned so that the note A vibrated at 432 hertz, A at 432. When A is 432, the entire musical scale shifts. C becomes 512 hertz, exactly 512. That's 2 to the ninth power. 8 hertz times 64. The mathematics are clean. The relationships between notes are whole number ratios. No irrational numbers, no complex decimals, pure mathematical relationships. At 432 hertz tuning, every note is a power of 2, multiplied by a small integer. C is 512. D is 576. E is 648. The harmonic series creates reinforcing relationships. Overtones align. The sound has mathematical coherence. More importantly, 432 hertz creates specific relationships with natural frequencies. The Schumann resonance, Earth's natural electromagnetic frequency of 7.83 hertz, is 432 divided by 55. Exact division, no remainder. The tuning aligns with Earth's frequency. Water has resonant frequencies. The molecular structure of water vibrates at specific frequencies. 432 hertz tuning creates harmonic relationships with those water frequencies. The human body is 60% water. Those relationships matter biologically. This isn't New Age mysticism. This is harmonic mathematics. Frequencies either align mathematically or they don't. 432 hertz tuning creates mathematical alignment with natural frequencies. That alignment has measurable effects on how sound propagates, how it resonates in physical structures, and how it affects water-based biological systems. 1853. Conference in London. Musicians, instrument makers, and theorists debate the need for pitch standardization. Different regions use different tuning standards. Orchestras touring between cities have to retune constantly. Instrument makers have no standard to build to. The chaos is real. Standardization would solve genuine practical problems. The proposal emerges: establish international standard concert pitch at A equals 440 hertz. 8 hertz, higher than the 432 that Gothic organs use. The stated reason is that 440 produces brighter tone, increased brilliance, better projection in large halls. Organ builders object. Cathedral musicians object. They argue the new tuning damages the instrument's resonance properties, makes the large bass pipes less effective, creates acoustic dissonance in Gothic cathedral chambers. The buildings were designed for 432. Changing the frequency breaks the acoustic relationships. They're overruled. Commercial interests favor the brighter sound. Instrument manufacturers prefer the standardization for business reasons. The objections from organ builders and cathedral musicians are dismissed as resistance to progress. By 1955, 440 Hz becomes the international standard, adopted by the International Organization for Standardization, ISO 16. Every modern instrument, every recording, every digital synthesizer, 440 Hz, globally mandated. No exceptions. What actually happens when you shift frequency by 8 Hz? The entire harmonic structure changes. The mathematical relationships break. 512 becomes 523.25. No longer a power of 2. No longer a clean integer relationship. The alignment with natural resonances disappears. 4. 40 Hz tuning has no mathematical relationship with the Schumann resonance. Division yields irrational decimals. The alignment with water resonance frequencies disappears. The harmonic relationships that create reinforcing overtones become mathematically incoherent. From a purely acoustic engineering perspective, 440 is inferior to 432 for use in Gothic cathedral environments. The reverberation characteristics change. The standing wave patterns shift. The piezoelectric response of the granite becomes less efficient because the frequencies no longer align optimally with the crystal structure's natural resonances. Cathedral organs tuned to 432 produced specific frequencies that activated piezoelectric properties of the stone and entrained human brainwaves to natural earth frequencies. The entire system worked as designed. Retuning to 440 broke those relationships, not as side effect, as direct result of the frequency shift. The conference that adopted 440 Hertz occurred in 1853, the same period when industrial energy monopolies consolidated power, when electrical power generation and distribution became centralized corporate enterprises, when patents for electrical devices proliferated and access to electrical technology became controlled by commercial interests, the same interests that later destroyed Tesla's Wardenclyffe Tower, the same interests that suppressed research into atmospheric electricity and wireless power transmission, the same interests that benefit from centralized, metered, controlled energy distribution. The organs were detuned from 432 to 440. The frequency relationships that made them effective as electromagnetic generators were broken, disguised as musical standardization, implemented globally, made mandatory. The machines were turned off by shifting them 8 Hz out of alignment with the frequencies that made them work. Between 1920 and 1970, a wave of organ replacements occurred in major European cathedrals. The stated reason was modernization. Old organs were difficult to maintain. Parts were hard to source. Modern organs would be more reliable and easier to play. Notre Dame Cathedral, Paris, the organ built in 1730, was heavily modified in 1868, then completely replaced in 1959. The new organ had fewer bass pipes. The 32-foot rank was eliminated, claimed to be unnecessary for modern liturgical music. Cologne Cathedral. The 1618 organ was destroyed in World War II. The 1948 replacement was built to modern specifications. Different scaling, different voicing, tuned to 440. The bass ranks shortened. Westminster Abbey. The 1730 organ replaced in 1937. Extensive modifications to accommodate modern playing style. Large bass pipes removed. Acoustic dampening materials added to the cathedral interior to reduce reverberation time. Chartres. Through the 1960s, various pipes were removed or shortened during renovations. Documentation is vague. Account books show expenditures on organ modifications, but don't specify what changed. Before and after acoustic measurements don't exist. We know the sound changed, but not precisely how. The pattern is consistent across Europe. Medieval organs replaced or heavily modified. The largest pipes, the ones producing infrasound, systematically eliminated, claimed they were damaged or unnecessary. The 32-foot ranks specifically targeted for removal. The stated justifications don't withstand examination. Medieval organs lasted 400 years with basic maintenance: leather, wood, and metal. Simple materials maintained by traditional craftsmen. The claim that they were difficult to maintain is false. They were more durable than modern organs, not less. Modern replacement organs require expensive maintenance after 50 years. Electronic components fail. Specialized materials degrade. The maintenance costs are higher, not lower. The reliability is worse, not better. What changed fundamentally was the frequency range and tuning. New organs standardized to 440 hertz. Infrasound capability eliminated or severely reduced. The acoustic relationship with the cathedral structure broken by design. Measurements exist for some cathedrals before and after organ replacement. Chartres has acoustic studies from 1958 and 1972. The reverberation time decreased from 11 seconds to 8 seconds. Not because the building changed, because acoustic dampening materials were added during the organ renovation, deliberately reducing the acoustic amplification the building was designed to create. The electrical field measurements show even more dramatic change. A 1961 study measured electromagnetic field strength in Notre Dame during organ performance. Measurable field variation correlating with organ frequency output. A 1965 study, after the organ replacement, found no measurable field variation during organ performance. The new organ didn't generate the piezoelectric response the old organ produced. The buildings remained. The granite columns with their quartz content remained. The Gothic geometry remained. But the activation mechanism was removed or modified. The organs that produced sustained low-frequency vibration were replaced with organs designed for musical performance only. The frequency technology was disabled. And modern church culture enforces silence. Speak in whispers. Don't disturb the sanctity of the space. Walk quietly. No loud sounds except during designated times. The organs play briefly. Musical interludes during service. Never the sustained tones that medieval worship used. Never the hours-long performances that Gothic cathedrals were designed for. Medieval cathedral services weren't quiet. Organ music for extended periods. Sustained notes held for minutes. The space filled with sound, vibrating, constantly. That was normal. That was expected. That was how you used the building correctly. Modern silence isn't reverence. It's deactivation. A machine that isn't turned on can't function. The frequency technology requires sustained sound input to generate the electrical field and create the neurological effects. Brief organ music during service doesn't provide sufficient duration. The organs play, but not long enough. Not at the right frequencies. Not in the sustained manner required for the system to work as designed. The cathedrals became museums. The machines became monuments, visited by tourists, admired for architecture, but never activated, never used for their designed purpose. The structures themselves remain. Gothic cathedrals still stand across Europe. The geometry is unchanged. The granite columns with their quartz content are still there. The acoustic properties that create 8 to 12-second reverberation are still functional. The buildings work. They're just not being used. What's missing is proper activation. The organs that produced sustained low-frequency vibration at 432 Hz have been replaced or retuned. But a few cathedrals maintain original organs. A few still tune to 432. And when those organs play, the effects remain measurable. You can verify this. Find a Gothic cathedral with an original or historically accurate organ tuned to 432 Hz. Several exist in France and Germany. Attend a service where the organ plays, not brief musical phrases between prayers, sustained performance, the long bass notes. Pay attention to physical sensations, the vibration in your chest from low frequencies, visual effects during sustained bass notes, not imagined, physical, your eyeballs vibrating. Peripheral vision shifts, emotional responses that feel disproportionate to the music itself. These aren't mystical experiences. They're biological responses to specific frequencies. If the cathedral allows, bring an electromagnetic field meter. Basic models are inexpensive. Measure the EMF level during silence. Then measure during organ performance, particularly during sustained bass notes. The difference is detectable. The field strength increases when the organ plays, decreases when it stops, particularly strong near granite structural elements. This isn't subtle. With proper measurement equipment, the effect is obvious. The organ generates vibration. The vibration creates piezoelectric response in the quartz containing granite. The piezoelectric response generates electromagnetic field. Measurable. Reproducible. The technology hasn't disappeared. It's dormant. The buildings exist. The principles still work. The physics hasn't changed. Only the activation mechanism has been removed or modified. Gothic cathedrals aren't religious monuments that coincidentally have interesting acoustics. They're precision-engineered acoustic and electromagnetic machines built in stone. The organs aren't musical, instruments that happen to vibrate the structure. They're frequency generators designed to activate piezoelectric properties in the building and create specific neurological effects through sustained infrasound exposure. The Gothic arch isn't decorative. It's acoustic focusing geometry. The vaulted ceiling isn't just efficient load distribution. It's sound wave channeling. The granite columns aren't just structural support. They're piezoelectric generators. The stained glass windows aren't religious art. They're transparent elements allowing light while maintaining acoustic reflection properties. Every element serves function, not religious function, technical function, frequency technology built on a scale we can barely comprehend even knowing it exists. The organs with their 32-foot pipes producing 16 hertz, the cathedral geometry creating 12-second reverberation, the granite columns generating electricity through acoustic pressure, the tuning at 432 hertz aligning with Earth's natural frequencies, all of it engineered, all of it functional, all of it working together to create an electromagnetic environment that affects human consciousness through measurable physical processes. Not faith, physics, not worship, frequency, not divine inspiration, acoustic engineering. They built it. It worked. They used it for centuries. Then it was systematically deactivated, retuned from 432 to 440. Largest pipes removed, organs replaced, sustained playing discontinued, silence enforced. The frequency technology was turned off, not destroyed, not lost, deactivated. The blueprints exist in stone. The buildings demonstrate the principles. The measurements prove the effects. We have everything we need to understand it. Everything except permission to use it. Because functional demonstration of frequency technology that affects consciousness generates electrical potential without fuel and operates on principles suppressed by energy monopolies for centuries, that's not something that gets officially acknowledged, not something that gets taught in universities, not something mainstream science examines. The organs exist to vibrate stone. The stone vibrates to generate electricity and sustained low-frequency acoustic environment. The frequencies combine to affect human neurology, not through belief, through resonance, through piezoelectricity, through measurable, reproducible physics. They called it worship. They built cathedrals. They installed organs. And they created frequency technology sophisticated enough that we're only beginning to understand it 700 years later. Technology effective enough that it had to be deactivated, disguised as religious architecture, retuned to break its function, replaced to eliminate its capabilities. The cathedral is silent now. The organ plays briefly. The tourists whisper. The machine sits dormant, but it remembers what it was built to do. 32-foot pipes, calculated to produce 16 hertz, granite columns with quartz crystal content positioned for maximum acoustic pressure, acoustic chambers with precise geometry creating standing waves and sustained reverberation. All engineered for function, not decoration. The frequency technology is still there, built into 6 million tons of stone, waiting for someone to tune the organ correctly, play the sustained notes, and activate what the builders designed. The machine works. It just needs someone to turn it back on.